Um, Everyone was very eager to learn what is available and what they have to do. Today, it is a bit of a more, I hope, relaxed atmosphere where we are here to talk about ourselves as leaders of our businesses and what are the situations we are facing, how have we solved them, how do we intend to solve them, sharing interesting information together and insights that will help us. So please keep on the chat going, and we will be using, in fact, the chat for the exchange between us. We are also live on Facebook, on the Malta Chamber of SME Facebook page. And in fact, our social media is one way that you can keep in touch with us. You can find us both on Facebook and on LinkedIn on Malta Chamber of SMEs, and some members also use that in order to speak to us because they find it convenient and they can reach us more quickly by using the messenger chat. Another way how to keep in touch is the WhatsApp alert system that we have. I will be giving you the number and we will be posting the link exactly. We have already done that on the chat, which is 4999995199. What you have to do is save that number under the title SME Chamber, the name SME Chamber, and send us the word subscribe. Do not worry, we will not be bombarding you with information. We will just let you know that something important is lying in your mailbox, and you would be alerted with the most important information related to businesses. What I need to point out is that in order for you to be able to talk to each other and share anything in the chat, before you post anything, just select all panelists and attendees. That way, everyone who is participating in this webinar will be able to see what you are writing and even reply to you. Alternatively, we also have the Q&A tab, and this time we will be using the Q&A tab for any questions you may have that might be maybe a little bit more personal, and you want to share them just with the panel. It is totally private, so nobody will know what you will be posting here in the Q&A. And we will make sure to share it in the most appropriate way without disclosing who has written to us. But please keep on the chat going. Something innovative that we will be having in this webinar is that we will be asking you to reply to a number of polls as we go along. So we want to hear from you what you are doing, how you are experiencing this. The idea of this webinar came after many instances that we had during the past weeks where business people called us and spoke to us, explaining the very difficult situation they are going through, and trying to sort out certain very important and things that were causing them a lot of pressure, and trying to find solutions together. So we thought, might as well, let's do this webinar, because some things are worth sharing with a wider audience. We will be talking about getting into the right mind frame, how to address certain problems in your business, and also common solutions that have worked in other business models that you can possibly apply for your own business. And with us, and I thank them very much for their participation and availability, we have Maurizio Mamo, who is a business mentor and coach, and Matthew Bartolo, who is a counselor and psychotherapist. I think that I have said enough, and I can leave it in your good hands in order to start. As I said, please put in your questions in the Q&A tab at the very bottom, or else if you want to share something, use the chat. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, good evening, everyone. Good afternoon, actually. As Abigail was saying earlier, we're here to instigate and facilitate a conversation. So I'm coming from the psychology background. I have businesses myself, but I'm here representing the psychological arguments in this discussion. And Maurizio, I'll let him introduce himself.
Hi, good afternoon. I own businesses myself as well, so I'm a businessman. Been such for quite a while. But I also mentor and train business people and startups, helping them and supporting them. So today, maybe we hope that between myself and Matthew, we will be able to support yourself. Just let you know that obviously you're not alone in all of this, and we're all in this together. And maybe by going through a positive discussion, we can come up with some positive ideas that some of you might find useful, and maybe some of you might also get some game changers out of this, and they can help your business thrive or at least survive this period. So Matthew, I don't know if you want to start.
I think it would be good to start even from the psychological implications of what we're going through. So I'm sure you've heard this before, that we're all going through an anxious period in our life, be it if we have successful businesses or businesses that have been struggling because of what we're going through. And this is because we feel that there is a threat. And when there's a threat, especially to our physical well-being, our body will react in a flight, fight, or freeze mode. This is coming back from our ancestors, where if they saw a bigger animal than themselves, an adrenaline rush went through their body. Some of them flew, so they flee the scene. So they need a lot of energy to run, heart beats faster, and they need to run away from this animal. Others were instigated to fight this threat. And most of us would act in this way. Others, we see even in our clinics, freeze. So brain stops functioning, and sometimes we even hear people who physically feel that they can't do anything about it. It's those who fight got that reaction in the first couple of weeks of the quarantine and all that we were going through. And we were trying to be creative and come up with things of how we can fight what we're going through. But adrenaline subsides after a couple of weeks. So chances are those of us who had this instigation to be creative and think outside of the box, they went through a period of feeling exhausted. Allura, at some point in these 8 weeks, we all went through these periods, and that's very, very common. In fact, some of the symptoms that we're seeing even at the clinic from business people who are running their own show is anxiety. Sometimes we go through apathy, moments where we don't feel like doing anything. Detachment, you hear people who plan a whole weekend of what they want to do, even on themselves and in their houses, and then they just chill for a whole weekend and watch Netflix or whatever. And because they don't have the energy, the mental energy to fight it. And this affects our motivation. So today we're going to talk about what it means to go through all this, yet find it in yourself by taking care of your mental health and your physical health, the energy to be able to function again and think outside of the box and try and build resilience, which we'll be talking about later. But I felt I should start with explaining what most of us, if not all of us, are going through. So I've met people who felt stomach aches, headaches, chronic fatigue, changes in appetite, people who are eating a lot, people who are eating much less, insomnia. We did some research at Willingness, and there's a lot of people who are having some kind of nightmares or sleeping much more than usual. This is all natural reactions. It doesn't mean you suffer from anxiety or you suffer from depression. It means that you're a human being going through what we're going through right now. So that puts us into the context of what we're going through mentally. And obviously, there's also a poll going on, which will ask you what you are going through even as a business. So if you can help by replying to this poll, it will also help us, the panelists, understand better how this has impacted you as a business person and also personally. And this is a shared experience between all of us. You know, all this that I'm mentioning is what each and every person is going through. Because there is the uncertainty of what and who can infect us, and at the same time, a massive uncertainty, which is how is it going to affect our business and when is it going to end, which is on top of the anxiety that we usually feel when there's a threat. There's the added anxiety of not knowing when this is going to end.
You should be seeing the poll in front of you. So if you don't, anyone who doesn't, please let us know, because we are seeing it in front of us and we wouldn't know exactly what you are seeing from your end. But basically it is a question asking you, how has this situation affected your overall business operation? Whether you have had to close down, you continued working but started working remotely, whether part of your operation has had to stop to different degrees. Maybe you remained fully functional, or else you had to start redundancies. As soon as you answer it, it will go away. So don't be worried. You will see the results. They will come up shortly. We will be sharing them. Okay, and what Matthew has just said resounds a lot with what I personally have experienced. I don't own a business myself, as you know, but I've gone through this every step of the way with the businesses. We think we have managed, or hope we have managed, to be part of their support system. But yes, it has caused me a couple of unsettling nights and worrying a lot about how to change the strategy of our organization to be more present for the businesses that we represent, and also how to try and find solution to the many problems that people were telling us about. And it is indeed a shared experience. We say it in a way that now it's starting to lose meaning, but we are in this together. We are going through the same thing. And the way we react to certain situations, and it's okay to take a couple of days, it's okay to take some time to regain again the strength and be able to start taking steps forward.
Sometimes that time that we spend on the sofa or looking into the laptop screen, you know, which we feel is non-productive time or wasted time, is literally our brain investing in itself and taking care of itself. So for those of us who are used to managing different things, managing a certain amount of meetings one after the other, and now are seeing that they're managing less activities throughout the day, and they are spending a lot of time, which we would call idle time, like staring into the screen. It is very normal, auntie, you need it, your brain needs it, so that it catches up with all that we're going through. I like comparing it to when you have a very good mobile phone and there's an app in the background sucking onto your battery charge. And that is what anxiety and the situation is doing to most of us. So even personally, whereas I used to structure my day to be able to carry out at least 10 different activities, nowadays I'm allocating time for recuperating my mental exhaustion, and I am expecting from myself 7 activities, if not 6. And as a matter of fact, we got the poll results, and as you can see, we are obviously different people were impacted differently, but everyone was impacted. And there will be people who managed to work remotely, and even that is a new experience for most of us. And that too takes energy. Investing in the team, we need to invest much more in the team when we are working remotely, especially when it comes to commitment and team spirit and trying to keep up communication going. And then we have people who had to make difficult decisions, such as redundancies and pay cuts and closing down parts of their business to maintain the core of their business. And this all means that we go through losses. So whenever I am talking to business people who are going through periods where they have to cut down costs and sometimes even staff, it is a loss. We might not see it that way because we are focusing on the now and trying to survive, but making those decisions, who to let go, is a loss. So we bereave that person as well. We bereave that part of the community that we have built and we had to let go. And even telling them is not that easy. Mauro, ma nafx minn ħatijak. If there's anything you want to add at this point.
Yes, in a nutshell, just to continue on your
You're mute, Mauro.
Sorry. Okay, so on the same frame of mind, it has not been easy for everyone. I mean, in the end, no matter how your business has been affected, it has been affected. So, all right, some will say, listen, I managed to work remotely one way or the other. I'm moving one way or the other, things continued going. But let's face it, if the situation continues in this fashion, in this manner, payments will slow down. Eventually, people will, need to get paid. Work will slow down. No new momentum is going to be generated, and therefore, even those that currently are still in operation, if this procrastinates, they will start, slowing down too. So the whole idea is to, as you were saying quite correctly, not to allow the fight or flight and these negative thoughts to control where we're going with our business. And I will explain a little bit about this. Unfortunately, the problem with when things are going well is that only a few strategize. Why? Because the business is doing well, money's coming in, and long-term strategy at times seems useless. But if a business does not strategize, if a business works specifically on tactics only, now when I mention tactics and strategies, some people mix them up. But usually tactics are a part of strategies, okay? So it's tactics that make up strategies, all right? So the situation is that we are set in such a way that if we do not have correct strategies, long-term strategies, we end up in a situation where we're almost all the time operating in fight or flight. Now, in situations like this, it is very easy to just stick to fight or flight mode, okay? But strategy, in reality, is all about short, medium, and long-term decisions that a business needs to make. And we need to be in a position where we can properly put these down on paper, even in the current situation. It's not easy. I understand it. I am in a situation myself with my business. So I mean, I'm in it with all of you guys. But doing or taking rash decisions out of current information, out of fear, is the worst possible thing you could do. Because when we panic, we don't think. And usually panic is based on information we gather short term. So it's information we have in hand. It's not information based on data which is coming from reliable resources. Why? Because these resources in this situation themselves don't have much information. Case in point. Let's look at the whole COVID physiological thing. Everyone was initially saying it was a normal flu. Then from a normal flu, it became slightly different than a normal flu. Then suddenly it was something deadly, then a pandemic, and the information is changing all the time. So in reality, what we're saying here is that the company should have a long-term strategy, and that usually changes based on the shifts on the short and medium term. But it should be there, and that the short and medium term should be based on tangible information as much as one can. So not just on tactics. We do not just decide and shift what we're going to do with our business based on what we find out today. It has to be a decision built on a span of time and on some information our business is giving us back. And this is, I believe, super important, because I've seen a lot of businesses, including some customers of mine, that out of panic spent money to try and maybe mitigate or implement certain strategies with short-term strategies within their business. And they were based out of rash instinct. They were not based out of data. They were not based out of information. Let's not forget as well that for a period of time, we were basing most of our decisions on information that was scattered and coming from diverse directions. And I must say that one of the things that does not contribute to the state of mind of people as things stand, unfortunately, is some news we find everywhere nowadays online. So what we also need to look at, and this is something that I always try to implement and influence as much as I can my customers on, is to always keep in mind a couple of things. First and foremost, how do I collect my information? Social media has had a lot of impact on people's mentality, frame of mind. And what people do not understand, unfortunately, is the fact that in the end, social media machines are algorithms. Now, these algorithms basically base themselves on what people look for. And it is known, and Matthew, maybe you can confirm it more than I do, that the amygdala part of the brain is usually that part of the brain that handles negative information. Why? Because in the past, as Matthew rightly said, ignoring something negative in nature would have ended you dead. So this is still, I mean, we evolved fairly quickly in terms of technology. But our bodies are in reality still the same. Our brains still function in a very, very similar way to what they used to do thousands of years ago. So by default, we are more attracted to something that is negative and shocking when we are reading than to actually something that is positive. Although positive things give us more sort of relief and security, but negativity attracts more. And unfortunately, certain media uses this because they know very well how it works.
And it all feels closer as well because of social media. It all feels much closer. So before, if someone in my street died, I felt it's close to me. The threat is real. Nowadays, when it happens in America, in China, in Italy, it all feels much closer. So when I'm reading about it, and I'm reading about that particular person, it is affecting me as if it's my neighbor. So that is another effect of social media.
Exactly.
It helps us feel as a community, but it makes it feel much closer when it's negative.
Exactly. And
interject just a little, the usual housekeeping things that I need to do. We are going to launch the next question for our audience, for them to participate and tell us what they feel and how this has affected them on a personal level. Some have already shared a couple of things, and we are going to stop the live on Facebook so that we take this conversation to more of a private ecosystem. I'm sorry about that, and I also wanted to tell our panelists that we have two things that people have shared with us. Mostly, they are highlighting the situation related to human resources that I believe we will be focusing on a bit later on in the discussion. And someone said, and I think this relates a lot to the background and the sector that the businesses are coming from. Someone said that they still rely on the data that their business gives them, which is different from relying on the emotion and what you are feeling then to other businesses that have the facilities to have raw data and be able to respond to the data they have in a quicker manner. I think this is the distinction you were making, Maurizio. That.
Yes, really and truly, this is not a one-size-fits-all, of course. I base myself on data too, Patrick. So, I mean, I think we both come from an IT background, so we're very much used to actually handling data in a different manner. But not all of us come from that field, and not all of us have it. Now, what I would like to also specify is the fact that initially, at one point in time, it was not the data that was coming from the business that was concerning. It was the feeling, and I believe this will show also in this question, of uncertainty that people had because we did not actually have, and we still don't have, an idea of what's going to happen. So my point of view here was not, listen, everyone is acting rash. My point of view was, listen, the worst thing you could do is act rash and not wait to see how things develop, because sometimes a quick decision might prove to be a wrong decision. So
especially if it's triggered by fear.
Exactly.
What Paolo was saying is that when a decision is triggered by fear, there's a chance that it's going to be a rash decision, because fear is the strongest emotion.
Exactly. And this is what we're trying to avoid here. This is why we try to, as much as possible, still try to keep in some sort of way in line with some level of strategy. Now, I know it's difficult, and I am not saying that everyone will manage, but it is much more sane to try and structure yourself within the confines of some sort of strategy, rather than acting quickly without actually waiting to see how things develop. And that is the whole gist about all of this. Now, just to also continue on another area is I like to refer a lot to this, and Matthew, I think that this you can also top up on quite substantially about the building up of our emotional immune system. This is something I've discussed in length with people, and unfortunately, people that have been going through a good time feel it slightly more than others at times. Why? Because obviously we have a tendency as human beings to relax within the confinement of things are doing well, and therefore then when something hits us, obviously our emotions go off balance, and this affects our work, affects our business, affects our relationship with our employees. It affects us in a variety of ways, and in fact we will be discussing some of these later on. But I mean, what is your take on this, Matthew?
I think to add to what you're saying, it is about resilience. It is about understanding that there are things that we can control and things that we can't control. For example, I'm thinking of, and I'm seeing comments here as well, about people who are parents and trying to manage their own business as well at the same time. So I can understand that there are different kinds of challenges. And I'm also looking at the poll where there's quite some people who are saying that when we asked how much were you affected between 1 and 5, 5 being the highest, the vast majority is 3, 4, and 5. So we can see that people who are joining us and who are participating in this have been very much affected by this COVID situation. I think that one of the things that we need to remind ourselves is that, at least personally, one of my businesses is childminding, where we had to stop completely. One of the things that I remind myself is that it's not because people are not calling us because we did something wrong, but because it is dependent on the situation. And when I think of this situation where we had to stop completely, 100% of our work stopped. So we have a staff of about 12, 13 people who are not coming to work. I remind myself of the things I can control and things I can't control. And that makes it feel more real, because there are things that when we feel fear, and this is what we're describing, we try to control as much as possible. And that is exhausting in itself, because we keep feeding ourselves this feeling of failure. I'm failing because I'm not managing to control this. So there are aspects of what we do where we need to say, this part I can't control. There are things I can control. Let me focus on the things that I can control. And also remember that this is a period put in a context of a larger history of our business as well. So how were things in January and February? When I think of my own business, it was doing really well. So it is going bad, not because I did something wrong, not because I don't have the right formula or I don't know what I'm doing, but only because it is the current situation, which is beyond my control. And I'm repeating this because I'd like people to start thinking about it and even repeat it to ourselves. Because although I'm saying this and I know this, when it's the end of the month and I'm going through my accounts, I still feel a short panic attack where I'm seeing that all the numbers are under. But I remind myself that this will end, I don't know when, but it will end. And once it will end, people will definitely want to have some time for themselves. So I'm sure that the same formula that was helping me before, I might need to adapt it definitely, because it is going to be a different norm, but it was a winning formula already. And we need to remind ourselves this. And also another strategy that helps a lot when it comes to mental health and leadership is looking back at the history of the team or the company and seeing what worked in the past. And you might see coping strategies that you used in the past and you were successful and you used them. And just the exercise of looking back at the very beginning of your business and the history from then until now helps you understand that although this is an unprecedented time, so no one has been through the same exact thing before, I'm pretty sure that from the 58, 66 people who are following us, all of us can think of a time where throughout our business, even if it is in the very early days, we thought we're not going to make it. This is going to be a very difficult period. And we had to do sacrifices. And when we look back and we realize that we managed to overcome that period, we will understand that as a business leader, as a person, I've managed other obstacles in the past and I'm here. And our business thrived after that. So reminding ourselves that we have been through difficult times before, trying to remember what coping strategies helped then, and see which of those strategies we can use nowadays. Issa, because of this new situation, some of us might realize that the coping strategies that we used in the past, we can't use now. So we need to spend some time thinking as a group, as a team, with other mentors, with other colleagues of ours, trying to think of different strategies. What does that mean? That when all this is over, in our pockets, in our heads as leaders, as business leaders, we will have the coping strategies that helped us in the past. And we would also have developed new coping strategies. Issa, coping strategy could be managing to leave my kids up later at night so that they sleep later in the day, in the morning, and I manage to get some work done at 6 in the morning. Because that's what I need to do right now. Or it could be business strategies, which I need to learn now so that in the future I can still use them. So as you can see, there are a lot of different things mentally that we need to think about.
To add to this, Matt, something else, and this all embeds itself into what I mean with strengthening our emotional immune system. I mean, as business people, we've all been through our ups and downs. I mean, I know no one in business that did not have a period where they were doing not so good. Let's just say not so good. Okay, they've had their ups and downs, and we've been at the bottom situation where we all remember that, listen, at that particular point in time, it was really hard. Usually, this is where I go. I try to go back and remember my state of mind when I was in that particular situation, how contrasting it was, how difficult it was, and what was my state of mind. And where I want to arrive with this is simple. A lot of us, we perceive business as a start and an end. So we have a starting date when our business started or our business experience started, but then we perceive the end of our business as if it's going to be when we close our business. Now, our business life is not made of a start point and an end point. So some of you might agree with me, they had a business, didn't do so well, they closed it, they opened something different, which is now doing well. Maybe they opened something additional, which was doing also well. The whole point, it's not a finite start-end situation. So let's say you have a business at the moment, okay? And with this situation, it was hit really badly, and there might be the possibility that in this particular format, it might not continue working properly because of what's going to happen, because of the hit you took. It could be a variety of things. And this could be any business. At the moment with this COVID thing, any business could be hit in this particular manner. Of course, there are some that have been hit worse than others, but in the end, the situation is what it is. Now, if we look at it as if it is the end of everything, it is a very big mistake, because in 10 years down the line, this will be another bad patch our business life we went through. We will remember how we felt, and probably we will remember how we, tried to handle it. Maybe because there is going to be another bad situation. So the moment we get stuck in the moment now, and our brain starts specifically focusing only on the problems now, okay, the situation becomes that you are actually living in the panic this situation is giving you. You're looking at things short term. Now, that frame of mind at times, and this is where we mention our emotional immune system, puts us in a position where it is hard to think. It is hard to make certain decisions properly. It is hard to get outside of the box and try to find solutions on how to go around some of the problems that are brought along by this situation. As Matthew said, for those that decided to stay and fight, okay, in the initial stages, the majority of them, or a good number of them, managed to come up with very intelligent ideas, because they, pulled out of their bad experiences, tried to come up with the strength and the ways to get out of the corner they had been put in. Now, it's difficult because with time you get tired, and we are all getting tired of this. People are getting tired to stay inside. People are getting tired to wait. People are getting tired about the whole shebang of having kids at home and trying to work and trying to cope, and we're all going through this. But the fact that you manage in your head to compartmentalize a bit and say, fine, this is a finite period of, a journey. So there's going to be an up and a down, and it's not going to be the end of the world. I hear a lot of people, and we will be discussing about the human resources element, which on its own is already complex. When you put a pandemic in the mix, it becomes even more tricky. But the whole situation here is that, yes, maybe you will need to let go people. Yes, maybe some of the people will leave, but there are going to be also some areas that are going to be positive about it. You will know, for example, and we'll discuss this more in detail, who sticks around with your company. You will know those people that are faithful. Your team might be smaller eventually, but it will also be stronger if certain individuals decide to leave the boat for
If I may add, Mark,
Yes.
because I think what you're saying helps a lot, because it helps us understand that it is a period. It's not the end of what we're doing. This will end, but the business might go on. If the business will not go on, we as humans will definitely go on. And what we've learned during the situation and what we've learned throughout our years managing the businesses, we learn how to do better next time. I think something to keep in mind as well, and I want to answer anonymous questions that we got as well, is that our brand, who we are, will remain. So it is very important, in my opinion, that when we are coming up with solutions and ways forward in this situation, we keep in mind that this will end, but our brand, our reputation will stay. And people will judge us on how we dealt with the situation. Okay? For example, there was Mother's Day and there were a lot of restaurants offering deliveries. I know of restaurants where they did their best to attract more people, and you know that they gave a good service. So once this is over, I'm sure I'm going to go to those restaurants. There are others who stretched their staff, stretched their clients as much as possible to get in as many orders as possible, but didn't manage to deliver on time, and the food wasn't as good. So, okay, maybe for this month, they did help their accounts, their Excel sheets, but what will that do in the future? The way they handled Mother's Day, is it going to help sales next month? Or is it going to give a bad name to what you're doing? When it comes to the team, I think it's the same way. It's the same thing. Me and Mauro talk a lot about human resources and also about how we manage our teams. And I think most of our values are very similar, that we deal with our team as a team. So when we're doing well, we're sharing that. And where we're doing less well or badly, we share that as well. That has to do with the leadership style and the kind of atmosphere that we created in our team. I doubt that that's something that we can change now. So if I always stretch my staff as much as possible, will they still be there now? Can I talk to them in the same way as I used to do before? Or can I ask them to help out now? So it might also be an opportunity for us to rethink our perception of our team. One of the questions was, I think it's a very good question because it's very much related to how I run my clinic as well. I own a clinic with employed admin staff and clinicians who are subcontractors. And here what we're seeing is that the subcontractors decided to leave because it's a difficult time. It is a situation where I own clinics as well, and most of the team are subcontractors. And I am investing a lot of my time and a lot of the admin time with maintaining a team spirit. So I am allocating time where I have Zoom meetings with all the subcontractors and checking out on them and seeing how they're doing. Because it's very important for me to maintain that kind of relationship with them as well. It is also keeping us, the admin team and the core team at Willingness, very much busy and trying to be creative on fun ways of reaching out to our subcontractors, which for me are clients as well. And most of them send us private messages saying, we really appreciate you checking on us. What does that mean? Hopefully it means that once this is over, and I'm already seeing, because we work in mental health, so in the last week we saw a certain amount of clients coming back or new clients calling us to talk about mental health. Because we trained the subcontractors where we paid for their training 6 weeks ago on how to use online platforms, and we sourced out online platforms for them which are up to standard and encrypted. Now we are in a position where when clients are coming back or new clients are calling in, the subcontractors are still there and they have the skills and hence the confidence to be able to see these clients. So I think it is about thinking of your core values as a team, as an organization, as a leader, and then try and implement them in the most creative way possible at this time.
And I mean, to start linking things together a bit, one of the main reasons why we started with strategy was predominantly because these things, if they were not part of your strategy before, you should start including them. Why? Because in the end, you need your people to pull your same rope. Okay, now for some of you or for the majority of you, it is the case. For others, maybe they're finding it difficult. For others, some of their team is helping out. But in the end, taking stock of what are the things you have control on. So what you can control. And these things, if anything, one of the areas of the list is the part of your employees that are pulling the rope with you that you can control. You can't obviously control those that decide to go against the current. No one can control people up to a certain level, but there are certain things that you can control. So bringing up a short-term list of things that you can control is, I believe, key as part of your short-term strategy. Now, that would be coming up with ideas to reduce cost without reducing as much as possible the quality, as Matthew was saying, okay? Coming up with potential new ideas, but how do you come up with new potential ideas when the majority of people are feeling down? The majority of people are feeling drained because they have to fight with a lot of issues. And this is what we're trying to say here. So first and foremost, put panic on the side. Put the situation on the side, not because it's not there, but because you need to clear your brain, your mind for a while, so that you can pull yourself outside of the business and start to think effectively. Because unless you start thinking effectively and your judgment is clouded by a lot of negative feelings and whatever is going on in your household, in your business, you will not manage to come out with anything of value, because we do not think straight when we're in a certain frame of mind. And going back to the human resource side, there are people that are at the top of the management chain, okay? And they don't manage, they find it really hard not to allow their internal feelings and the way they're feeling and their concern to trickle down on their employees. I mean, how many of you have had situations where you've had a manager who can't handle pressure, and this pressure goes down on his subordinates? That pressure affects your business. Now, at this stage, you are in that situation where you need to move forward with clarity, especially with your top line people or your subordinates if you don't have top line people, to make sure that there is a positive frame of mind of, let's go for it. We know it's going to be hard, but we are going to be successful. It's not easy, but if you influence negatively your staff, this will, of course, affect negatively your business. And you need them all there. You need them all with you, by your side. You can't do it on your own. And this is another thing. I mean, what's happening at the moment is a lot of business people, myself included, are scared that they are going to have to let go people. We know that there is a responsibility. We have families that depend on us. And we want to try and make sure that these families can thrive and that they don't have issues, because we know that if we let them go, obviously it's going to be very hard for them to find another job. And this, don't keep it to yourself. I mean, communicate it effectively with people, because people resonate with, with feelings. And I mean, they all know that we're going through a negative situation, and you should not be holding all of this on your shoulders. But focusing on what we can control is one of the strategies that we should adopt. So let's not delve into the problem and, just, I mean, I've had business people talking to me, and they were telling me, because the situation, we don't know what's going to happen, we're completely closed. Yes, fine. But that is something that we all know now. And we can't do much about it. So what can we do in the time that we have? We've had businesses that started reinventing themselves, that came up with positive ideas. They went into training. They started training their people. I know you're trying to stay afloat, but let's not also forget that we're all humans, including our employees. So the moment we manage to keep them motivated, we know that when we will need them to pull the rope with us, the probability is that the majority of them will move with us. Not all of them. We never have control on that. But what we can do is we can positively influence our people. This is the time where we show what leaders are made of. This is the time when we actually lead our business, and we lead our business by trying to make sure that everyone's state of mind is as much as possible kept at a reasonable positive level. Okay, reasonably positive level. Everyone knows what's going on, and people are receptive to that. So do not think that people will not understand you. They will. Not all of them, but most of them. And this is where this positivity comes into play. This is where, like Matthew was saying, you invest in the resources that maybe are made available online that you can actually create in-house. It is the time to try and keep your staff motivated, especially if they are on a 3-day week, if maybe you've reduced, their conditions have been reduced. Obviously, they won't be much happy about it, but it's one thing where we're all together in this, and we're all pulling the same rope. And it's another thing where they feel isolated. They don't know what's going on. They think erroneously, as some might lead them to do, that we have an unlimited pot of gold, and we were doing good revenue, and now suddenly we are hammering them in order to stay afloat. The moment you start involving them in what's going on and how the company is tackling it, and actually providing a vision of where we are as a company want to go in this situation, that is where they will follow you. They will come along. If anything, you will know who those individuals within your company are actually feel part of your company. And
if I may interject a bit, Maurizio, please. I want to give just a little bit of space to the audience, because we are launching our third question, which is exactly regarding the topic we are talking about, more related on human resources, which appears to be the biggest struggle. And I wanted to share, because not everyone is seeing them. For instance, a childcare center is saying there is a constant strain, not only to keep oneself motivated and not despair, but to keep a team of staff motivated, interested, and also to support parents with their children, support the children. And yes, we are all in a way grieving, as we have lost very suddenly our contact with each other, and children also feel distressed missing their friends. I was so concerned about the mental health of all that I did do a webinar with a child psychologist, and 38 parents joined. Very useful, but a lot to take in for all concerned. Families and children, mothers and fathers, have their own particular concerns, such as keeping up with the school lessons for all their children, and have stressed mothers in particular that they are trying to telework. which is something positive. I believe that even though it is about sharing the stressful situation together, I think it's positive that this person took the initiative to do something about it and made them realize from an early stage that they are going through this situation together, and she hasn't forgotten them just because she has now closed the doors. Someone else shared there are also some employees that do not understand the situation as if it is an off and on switch, especially when we try to explain that the return will not be the same as we were in January and February this year. Someone else said that the biggest battle was in the mind. Another person said that it is not easy to remain disciplined, remain focused, and move forward. In times like this, in the earlier part of the pandemic and lockdown, we had no history of how long this will last. I feel that there was an element of novelty as well as a real fear of the unknown. However, 2 months down the line, we know a little bit better because we have experienced life in lockdown. I feel that at the end of the pandemic, there will be a new world economic order. Things are going to be different and for some very different. What techniques can one utilize to maintain positivity and communicate the reality check to staff and management alike? Hold on to that question, please, to answer. For staff, someone else also posted for staff to accept a reduced hourly week. Management should also suffer a similar percentage cut in their salary without reducing their working week. This is how I saved Hilton from closing down from a certain period to a certain period. And going back to the question that was posted anonymously, someone, the same person of the clinic, had asked how to reinvent the business structure since it was based on subcontracted, so sort of self-employed people instead of employees. I think that from the experience we have in dealing with these kind of businesses, some have found, and maybe it is an opportunity to take at the moment. On one aspect, having a lot of employees linked to the business, in these situations, certain businesses are feeling the pressure that they have to keep everyone on board. In this case, it's the other way around. Many have left. So maybe a mix of both. There are a number of business models that have kept a number of people fixed with them, and then others that would need more flexibility and would like to work specifically on a self-employed basis, engaged on a self-employed basis, to give that level of flexibility both to the business and to the employees. If this person would like to get in touch in order to help them even to do this properly legally, because there are a couple of difficulties that one has to look after to do it properly, we will be very happy to help. In your good hands.
I would compare leadership in business to parenting. So I think that sometimes we need to be transparent with our staff and with our team about our fears and our situation in the business. But there are other moments where we need to deal with our own emotions ourselves and present what the team needs at that point in time. I don't know what Mauro thinks of this, but my idea of leadership is that I take care of my team as well. And I would do the same thing even with subcontractors. It doesn't necessarily mean that if I take care of them financially at this point in time, I'm going to keep them longer with me or they will come back. What I am doing, and I think that it's working, is taking care of them from a different perspective. So a lot of subcontractors or self-employed people at this point in time are feeling alone. Same thing as Yvonne said about creating these spaces with the child psychologist for the parents. So I think it's the perfect opportunity to invest and create a community feeling, even if it wasn't there before. I think it's more difficult for business owners to ask of their team to suffer financial cuts if they were never as transparent and fostered this community feeling before. But this is the right time to make use of platforms which are readily available on a lot of different sites and a lot of different suppliers, and maintain a community approach. So if I am running this clinic where I'm seeing subcontractors leaving, I would create a space for them to meet up and talk about how they're feeling about it. Because chances are that their work got reduced as well. So maybe you cannot help them financially, but you can help them by being there for them. And when it comes to staff retention, it is proven that it is the human connection that makes a person feel connected with the organization. If we look at gaming companies who fork out many thousands of euros per month in perks on top of their wages, their staff retention isn't as good as other organizations, as SMEs, where they invest in the community spirit. And this is proof that money and organization psychology has been saying this for decades now. It's not enough. So this is the time to be the parent of your organization, take care of your staff and their mental health, and even of your clients. Why not?
If Matthew, if I can add to this, I am in total agreement. I mean, keeping in contact with them. I mean, the bigger the institution is, the bigger the business is. Obviously, it's harder if you have 100-man business to keep in touch. But I still remember when I was employed way back. I used to work for large companies. And what used to really impress me is that when the chairman used to come in, he used to find the time to say at least good morning to everyone he managed to meet. He made it, he made it his agenda to just, come, say good morning, ask how we were doing, everything. And this was something I tried to keep along in my business when I kept it. So now more than ever, I try to keep in touch with everyone, even the subcontractors, because I have subcontractors working for me too. And it is surprising how sometimes knowing and understanding a little bit about their personal life gives you an insight of how they're feeling. And in the end, one of the main ways on how you can retain staff, or at least making sure that they back you up, is if you try to understand them as much as you would expect them to understand you, because it shouldn't be one-sided. What we've tried to do as well is we tried to do, and then maybe this is something that might help some of you. We try to do online meets where instead of going out, because we can't do it, we did something really simple. We sent them all a bottle of wine. On the house, didn't cost much, and maybe a small platter just as delivered on a Friday evening, and we just had a glass of wine all together, having a conversation, looking at the kids running everywhere, because it's part of it, it's what binds people together, and that sense of family, and that sense of unity within a business is what we need now. And this is what we need to try and do. We need to try and get people to get on our side, understand a little bit what's going on, make them feel that, listen, we are trying. It's not that we don't care. We are trying. We're putting money into it. We're getting wage cuts. We're not, we're not managing you're not keeping everything for ourselves, and we're just leaving you alone there. You are part of us, and we will take care of you if you take care of us, because they can't expect that you're taking care of them, but then, they just sit pretty. But unless you're doing this, and unless you try as much as possible to make them feel part of the organization, even from a personal point of view, by becoming part of their family, their organization, understanding the problems they're going through. I mean, I have people with kids that had cancer and they're immunodeficient and they have a problem, they can't go out. I have employees with that situation, but I try to, as much as possible, understand what they're going through, coming up with ideas on how we can keep them functional. I had an employee who got stuck in Colombia with her family and she can't come back. We still decided to try and find some work we could give her remotely. So first and foremost, she doesn't go nuts for 2 months with her parents locked in a 2-bedroom. And secondly, because we wanted her to feel still part of the organization. And when we do these events, although there is a time difference, she makes it her priority to be there. And she introduced us to her parents and you know, to their relatives. Really and truly, it was something we couldn't do before because there was no situation or no scenario where we could actually entertain this. And I believe that this, and Matthew, I mean, you're exposed to this more than I am, maybe with customers of yours or patients, it does the whole difference. I found that from an HR standpoint, this does the whole difference for us. We've had, I mean, we only lost 1 person in all of this out of the 25 we have within our team. And mainly I would say because of this. Because let's face it, I mean, I have another business, it's in IT. And gaming companies, or the majority of them, continued going. They continued giving the wages they were giving, although they resized a bit. But predominantly, some of my people, if they wanted to leave, they could have. Matthew, I don't know you.
Before Matthew comes in, I'm sorry, I am just a couple of more comments, but in the meantime, I'm going to call the results of the poll so that everyone can have a look at them and absorb them. We do Zoom 4 times a week with families to keep in touch. It is really dragging now with no end in sight, getting harder to keep their focus, because when we started off, we thought it might be a couple of weeks, and now it's become a way of living. Something else, more than half the team have been trying to help and work, as all are being paid full-time wages. I am only expecting like 12 hours work weekly and studying, but 2 others are not really willing to do much at all and are indicating that they will not wish to return to work once we open, which will be serious as we need all of us as soon as we open. They seem to be pressured by husbands to stay at home with the children or say they are afraid to go out. This has surprised me, as we have been through together as a team for years and I have paid them all fully with all the costs and income. Someone else is saying, this we might address separately. Someone in the chat mentioned cutting employees' salaries, but asking them to work same number of hours. But is this legal, and can it be done unilaterally, or can employees, some or all, oppose? It is not legal and it cannot be done. There are specific ways in which you can do this, and you can get in touch with us and we will explain how to go about getting the same result in a legal way, which is also fair for the employees. Someone said, I agree with Mauro, are used to enter from the staff area and salute each and every member of the staff in the store's laundry engine room, front office, and even maids on 1 or 2 floors. Now I do it every day with our staff before I even go to my desk. Has a positive effect. Being missed now, which I think is an important point, being missed now as I am closed in, it does not cost anything.
And then these things don't cost anything in reality. I mean, the simplest things don't cost anything. And with human resources, one would be surprised. If I may address, and maybe Matthew, you can also give me your view on this.
I'd like to add before you go on.
Sure.
I think it is a company culture. And I understand that if companies are big and you can't, the owner, the business person can't do it himself or herself with each and every individual. But if you do it with the senior management and you teach them and you show them how they can do it with middle management and it trickles down, you would be surprised how the sense of community is still built. So although it might feel like it's a mammoth's task, all you have to do is do it with your team and encourage your team to use some of their time to check on the others, be it the frontliners, be it the staff, or even the clients. So you can do it. It will take a lot of time to start with until you get it going if you've never done it before, but it is possible. to do it down from management to staff, most obviously. And when it comes to people feeling that it's being dragged out, I think we need to be more creative as well, because it's true that what worked a month ago will not necessarily work now, because people are exhausted and people are living in different situations than we can imagine. So I have clients of mine who are in accountancy firms. Some can work all day in an open plan, well-lit area, and they live alone. While we have others who live with their parents, who are working and they have a makeshift desk or office in their box room. So we need to be mindful also of those people and how this has impacted not just them, but even the space where they're working and where they're living. Because nowadays the boundaries between work and life has been blurred so much so that most of us would be eating, playing, and working from the same table or from the same room. And that does affect how we perceive things. So even when it comes to that business person who is feeling that two of the employees might not return to work, maybe you can approach them and try and understand better what's going on. Because people, as Mauro and I myself said at the very beginning, act out of fear. So if their husbands, if themselves are feeling overwhelmed with the situation, chances are they want to cut down on things that might be causing more stress. So when you talk to them and try and understand their reality, you might help them realize that this is not what is causing them stress, but there are other aspects of their life that are causing them stress. Or you might come to realize that it's true. This is where they're heading, and we need to respect that as well, fortunately, or fortunately.
And also something else is that the fact that you find also some time to do not just, you know, the gatherings, but also one-to-ones help. I mean, it's impossible to do it with big organizations all on your own. So as Matthew said, obviously the management has to help. But I've always been taught to lead by example. So, you know, good example usually or good initiatives are addictive. So people, when they see certain things and they relate that they are good things, they will try and replicate. And that is the philosophy of the company, and that should be part of the strategy of the company across the board. So I always go back to the first thing I started with, because it is what defines how we behave within our business in general. Now, one of the main things with one-to-ones is that you might start getting some hints of this. Matthew mentioned a particular instance. I know of individuals that they have a bad situation at home. Maybe their spouses and them are having a problem, or they have friction. And obviously because of this friction, and because this friction was there before, it's now become unbearable. So these situations, you get to understand when you're doing a one-to-one. They will not tell you, but you might understand. So if you're managing to do a 15-minute or 30-minute discussion, and the discussion should not be about them, discussion should be about something related to the business. But then you know how it is when you're having a coffee, you ask a couple of questions, and us as business people, we manage to understand people just by looking at them at times. So we would just, you know, start making up our minds, or start strategically putting in certain questions that are not obvious. You know, you're not going to ask an employee if he's having problems with his spouse, but you would you know, just ask how are things doing, maybe put an argument about the kids. And, you know, even from certain body language, you will know if they're stressed, you will know if they're going through maybe something that is not the norm, because you know them in their normal environment. So you would be able to tell at least the difference. And there is where you try to understand. Unfortunately, as we've said, they are in a different environment, and the level of control you have on these individuals when they are in their own home is by far different from what you would if they were at the office or if they were at the place of work. So there's not much you can do to do that, but you can try to understand. And if anything, if you show them that you are understanding, they might be more forthcoming to try and help with their limitations, but it's better than completely shutting down, which is, you get the exact response from them. They will shut down and you will not get any support. And what you need is a general consensus up to a certain level. So you need them to do their work, but what you don't need is someone who is negative, who is sour, and who is constantly undermining what you are trying to do to keep the business afloat, because they will meet on WhatsApp groups, private, and you won't be there. They will be on Teams. So the fact that you manage to keep the global consensus of your company and your employees all in a big positive location. If you have decent people that maybe are demoralized, because it happens, we have been discussing how not to actually trickle this on them. What you need to try and do is to instill this sense of community in such a way that if someone is negative, the others will try to help him rather than say, oh yeah, they're completely against us, they're trying to abuse our rights. This is what you don't need. What you need to do is to have employees that say, yes, guys, you are noticing what they're trying to do. They've tried to help. They've been out of their way to see if we need anything. They've been with us every step of the way. And I'm sure that they are doing their own sacrifices internally as a household. And they will be with you because you're showing them. You're just giving them, a clean slate to understand what you are going through. So the moment they can relate is that moment when you will have support from the majority of them. And we've said, not everyone will understand. And it's completely okay. It's completely okay.
Because it is about making the best out of the resources that we have. And the truth is that in any team, there will be people who will pull their socks and support. There will others who will ride the wave. And some of them are because it is their personality. And some because they're going through stuff that we don't know of, or because that the same situation makes them feel much more overwhelmed than it does us. And it might sound ironic that as a business owner, you are carrying so much and you're working very hard to try and support your stuff, and they feel more overwhelmed because of what you are going through or what they are going through, which might feel like it's a fraction of what you're going through yourself. But our threshold, our resilience is different from one person to the other. So the same way I'm talking about staff and business owners, the same thing we can see even when we are supporting different business owners who are working in the same industries. You will have some who will take it upon their stride and feel confident that they can survive this and that they can do it, and others who feel that they will not manage to bounce back, because it is how we perceive ourselves and our own abilities. So I would say that this is a good opportunity as business owners, as self-employed people who have been through, different situations in our lives, to look inwards, look into ourselves, and understand what kind of leaders we are, what kind of business people we are, and what threshold of stress and anxiety we can hold as a person. And there are very practical ways of dealing with stress. And in my opinion, it's three. One of them is write a list, think of what is stressing you at this point in time. People who like lists like myself will write them down. Others will just think about them, I'm a list person. And write them down and remove any stress that you might not, need to deal with right now. A perfect example is the kunyat. I can't meet the kunyat right now because she causes too much stress. Allura, I'm trying to cut down as much as possible. So there are things that we can do without, and others, they are priority and we need to deal with them. Then we need to find better ways of dealing with stress. So the only stress that we need to face, we need to find a way of dealing with it. But simultaneously, the third aspect of this is self-care. So am I eating well? Am I sleeping enough? Do I need to visit a doctor? Do I need to revisit my lifestyle and how I'm working and how I'm taking care of myself? So in my opinion, and then my professional opinion, it's these three things. One of them is remove anything that is stressing you that you can get rid of or postpone. The other one is you need to learn skills on how to deal with whatever you have in mind. Some people mentioned even self-discipline, which, as I said at the very beginning, and I started with it on purpose because it is an issue that we're seeing a lot, is that we feel more lethargic. And it's okay to be lethargic, but give it a time. Okay, I'm going to chill for an hour, but in an hour's time, I'm going to set an alarm, because I'm an alarm person as well, apart from a list person, and I'm going to get off the sofa and do something else. So I'm not going to do 10 activities today, but I'm going to push myself to definitely do 5, do 6. So every day I'm investing some time in my business and in myself. And if need be, try and create a boundary for those of us who are working at home, a physical boundary between where is that I'm working from, which area of the house, of the flat, whatever I'm working from, and which area am I using for my own leisure. Because an important part of doing what we do is the de-rolling, the being able from a manager driving home and being a father, being a partner, being a son, a daughter. And that ritual, we used to complain a lot about traffic, but really and truly, traffic for some of us is the ritual. When I left my office, if it's noon or 9 at night, I left my office, I'm listening to some of my favorite music, singing with it, going for a drink, calling my friends, whatever I do, there's a ritual that all of us have to de-roll from being a business leader to going home. And unfortunately, because of COVID, those of us who are working from home, that de-rolling, that ritual, we lost. And that is a very important part of our self-care. So what can you do? You need to find another ritual. It could be from the kitchen table where you work during the day on your laptop, you move onto the sofa. It could be having a long shower, going for a walk, listening to some music on your bed. But you need to find small ways that you do repetitively, day in, day out, to help your self-care. And try to find these rituals and these alone time that help you recuperate and try and recharge from this mental exhaustion as well.
And
Maurizio, sorry. I just want to share a couple of comments that came in, another positive move, but in the meantime, we launched the next question because it's also related to human resources, so that can come out in the meantime. Another positive move is to offer vacancies for higher positions in the company to in-house employees, provided they have the potential. We had excellent results by promoting two front office staff to sales executive who did very well and much easier to adapt to the clients and training, provided the staff had proved themselves in the previous job, of course. Someone is asking whether that they could now use some fun team activities remotely, and coincidentally, two companies that do team activities usually have also reinvented themselves to a remote system, and they have two interesting and very good products that they are offering free of charge at the moment. We will share these with you in our follow-up email to this webinar that you can try with your own staff. And something else that the conversation reminded me of is that at the beginning, many businesses called us being stressed about the changes they will need to do in their human resources plan. This has changed a bit into seeing an opportunity out of this. It's not coming from a point of view of getting rid of people. It's not that. It is that businesses have been so busy and maybe taking a step back into making certain changes and taking certain decisions that in reality should have been taken a while ago. So do see this as well. Do not hold back and do not be afraid of taking decisions that will put your business in a stronger position once we get out of COVID, and this is the right time to do it. So that is from my end. The poll is there. Sorry, Maurizio.
What I wanted to add to what Matthew was saying is that if you find the right chemistry, these tips and trips you can pass over to your staff too. So this could be also passed over as a number of suggestions to those employees you have that are working remotely, to help them and aid them to actually go through the situation in a similar fashion. Now, obviously, not everything will work for everyone, but the fact that you are putting forward these suggestions, first and foremost, means you care. And secondly, if it helps them and they manage to reduce some of their stress, it will eventually help the business too. So it is not just a matter of that. Now, moving into the resourcefulness part, but still keeping part of the human resource element. And I would like sort of to also understand if any of you do it. So if you actually do it, please do put it in the chat. We've also identified the fact that usually all the components of our staff, all the staff members, from the maid up to the directors, at times come up with really brilliant ideas, really good ideas. And in this time, in this particular time, to be resourceful, we need all the ideas that we can get. We need all, this is why we need all our team behind us, because we need these ideas. And these individuals, they're running around, like it or not, they're going to the supermarket, they're meeting remotely people, but they are, how should I phrase it? They are feeling this COVID situation and looking at it from a different standpoint, from a different point of view. So they might come up with ideas related to your business that will help your business be more resourceful, will help with ideas that might work to generate at least some money to mitigate part of the costs. Are there any of you that actually have done brainstorming sessions with their staff to see if anyone could come up with ideas? These shouldn't be, meetings where we're discussing the problems. We know what the problems are. This is a situation where we try to be resourceful because our employees understand parts of our business better than us and our business almost as much as we do. So they are the logical people to brainstorm with in a situation of crisis, or at least, a good majority of them, that are not negative to the situation. And I do it regularly. I do it regularly, even in a non-COVID situation. Okay, we have brainstorming sessions almost all the time. But in these types of scenarios, you find some people and some business people that tend to close themselves and, not ask for ideas or not try to sit down in a room to come up with some ideas. And I know that someone said that, after a while, meetings become a little bit stagnant online because obviously no one thought it was going to drag along. And I know that maybe it was in a different context because you were meeting with them to try and socialize and keep things going. But as Matthew said, sometimes being creative and discussing ideas also brings forward that level of excitedness of something new. You all know how we are. I mean, we've been brought up from when we were kids that when we get something new in hand, we're super excited about it. And sometimes that little spark, that little small idea that we can test and try, that's coming from our employees, might be the spark we need. And this is something I heavily suggest to everyone to try and do, and involve all of the members of the staff, except those that will be negative about it and might kill the vibe, unless you are sure that that might be a turnaround. But if possible, all of the members should be in a position to also come up with ideas, because ideas at times, bring a certain level of value, even at a psychological
and ownership as well.
Exactly. This matter you can maybe
Yes,
put
definitely.
forward.
But when you ask your team, even in smaller teams, to come up with ideas of how they themselves can reinvent their own role, because as Mauro was saying, I would say that in my teams, the people who are actually doing that role know that role much more than I do, because they're doing it now and they've been doing it for much longer. So if they, in their own teams, come up with suggestions themselves on how they can reinvent their own role, you are supporting them in finding value in themselves, helping them understand better your company, because then you can feedback back what can work and what can't and why. And it makes them feel ownership of the company as well, which I think is what we need right now to instigate community spirit. And I also think that part of all this is adapting to survive.
Exactly. And when you're mentioning change, I mean, if there's anyone who is used to change, are business people, because the scenario changes all the time. So sometimes it's excellent, sometimes it's totally bad, sometimes problems come along that you weren't expecting. And we all know that certain problems of our employees eventually become our problems too. So that is also a situation. But how well are we handling change as leaders, and how well are we training them to handle change? And some things you learn, you can teach. And I'm sure that those of you that have been in business for quite some time are in a position to teach a lot to their employees on how to embrace change. And you might find this as an opportunity to try and share your experiences with these employees, because some of them have no clue from where you're coming from. So in order to instill resourcefulness, in order to bring forward change to your business, you have to probably teach some of these individuals how to embrace change themselves. And together, you change your company. And this should not just be COVID red alert.
I think it's what business is all about. Business,
Exactly.
For me, is a series of experiments, things that I've never tried before, maybe other people haven't tried before, and you keep trying different experiments to try and be as innovative as possible. I don't think that any business survives because of status quo and because of, especially now in a digital period when things are changing rapidly all the time. This is another change that obviously, yes, it took most of us or some of us. It was quite a difficult period, and it is quite a difficult period, but it is another experiment, another opportunity for us to find innovative ways of surviving and being, and hopefully maybe even profitable.
So to add what you were saying, and I'm also looking at the fact that some people are commenting too. One thing we've mentioned before was detachment. So detaching a bit ourselves, taking some time off so we can recharge. And I'm not sure if any one of you has had this experience, but usually if you sleep with a problem, how many of you have had a situation where they wake up and the solution is there? Because the brain doesn't stop working, it keeps functioning. And the same happens when you detach. When you detach and you try to pull yourself out of the business to look at it from the outside, you start, understanding where some issues might be, because suddenly you no longer own that business. It was as if someone bought the whole share of it from you, and now it's his problem, but they kept you as a consultant because you know the business well. It happens the same when you're trying to actually become resourceful, because your employees don't own the business. They understand it, but they don't own it, and they look at it from a different standpoint. So the ideas they will come will not have that burden of problems that you know that they might not be aware of. So the ideas might be fresher, they might be more original, they might be, out of the whole perspective. And also the fact that we as business people discuss these issues between us. We are all seasoned, we are all understanding, and we are all in a certain way linked with this common enemy. So we have to, the fact that we understand and we can come up with suggestions, and the fact that we can use other people to help us be resourceful and brainstorm, I believe is a vital component to how we can actually get out of this and maybe survive through this whole storm. Because it is all a matter of collective here. No one can survive on its own, on his own. It's impossible.
And it's, when you see the post, for me, it's very motivating as well, because there are so many different ways of dealing with this, and we can see that it's almost, different people are trying different things as well. So these are all ideas, the ones that were shared by the participants, by ourselves, and on the polls. These are all ideas of how we can try and be more innovative and apply what we've heard today and what we're reading from the diverse participants onto our own businesses as well.
Should we launch the final question that we have?
Yes.
We are going to continue talking about different ways of turning challenges into opportunities, and how maybe you will be able to share with us how you have done this yourselves, because the level of ideas that I am currently walking into, that I am being exposed to, are really amazing. So we will put up our last question. Do you have any ideas to share? Do use the chat, please, so that we can make these ideas available to everyone who is part of our audience. In fact, we have someone who said that our staff have been idle for the past 8 weeks now, and we come from the catering industry. We have always involved our staff with our operations and treat them as part of the family, especially the ones that are working in Malta away from their families. We have concern as to the state of mental health of some of our staff. We keep the staff informed through our company group chat, and they can reach out privately with any difficulties. How would an employer go about reaching out discreetly without imposing on their privacy? A special concern is that the company has a healthy staff team coming back into work mentally and physically, as otherwise this would affect other staff and also have a negative impact on service to our esteemed customers.
I think I can answer this, Abigail, on 2 different scenarios. One of them is because most of our team here had a reduction in clients, we're asking them to help us with an online chat, which is free of charge, that we're offering on our page, Willingness Team, where we are supporting anyone who wants to chat. So it's very private, very confidential, supported by professionals. So what we're doing is using their own time, okay, to keeping them engaged and doing what they love doing, supporting people, and at the same time, as an organization, as a team, supporting the community. So what I would suggest is they can refer them to our online chat on the page, Willingness Team, and they can just write hashtag COVID, and once they write that, one of our professionals will answer them and they will support them. And we won't need to refer back to the organization. So if they refer them to this chat, we know that we will be there and we will be supporting them as well.
I think it's a very good suggestion put forward, Matthew. One of the ways of how you assess and start engaging on a level of mental health is to have an informal conversation, find pockets. And this might be difficult from a company perspective, given the current situation. So yes, they might feel more comfortable just being given the access to this platform, and everyone can do his own thing and go to access this kind of help that they might feel more comfortable at the moment doing. There are a lot of uncertainties, and in the same way you have a ton of bricks on your head at the moment and maybe not seeing the end of the tunnel. Your staff are in the same position, and even a bit worse maybe, because they feel they have even less control. They don't take decisions themselves, and they are always expecting news and always thinking what will happen tomorrow. Shall we put up?
And indeed, that is just one comment on top of what you were saying, Abigail, because I believe that you said something which is really important. At times you can't reach out. It's just they will not communicate, probably because they feel that you won't understand, or they feel that you might be in a position where you might not be in a position where you can help them. Putting forward something like this link so that they can go and actually get help shows that you are actually caring about their situation, and that you are going to out of your way to give them resources to find the support they need. So if we have to actually look at a situation where we can maybe try as a company to build a number of resources, that shouldn't take a lot of time, but it might be part of your HR process. Building a number of resources with a number of professional links they can actually go on where they can get help, as well as tips and tricks that would help them deal with a number of situations caused by COVID. Not necessarily giving it to them all at once, but maybe sending them some nuggets. Or we have mentioned that sometimes the conversation is running dry because no one thought it would drag this long. But what if we could come up with some of these nuggets? We set a meeting of 30 minutes and we discuss their issues, their concerns, and these potential solutions that they could adapt in their day-to-day life to go through this period that will eventually end, and basically, give them something to work on while they're there. Because there's also something else, which is boredom, which currently hits people that are incapable of keeping themselves active. So I think that what you've mentioned is very positive, and also offering them the right resources gives them a lot of stuff to work on.
We will be sharing the platform that Matthew has mentioned through the follow-up email that we send after the webinars. So there will be a number of good material that you can follow up on, especially related to staff engagement and things that you can do to help you spice up things a little while things are going a little flat. And we are going to share also the results of the last question that we had for you, showing a bit of an outlook and where your mindsets are at the moment.
Which is very, very encouraging, eh? The changing and adapting for me is, and brainstorming to look into new opportunities is exactly what we're talking about. That we look at what we're going through now and see it as a period in our lives, a period in our business history as well, not just the end, but it is an opportunity for growth and to reinvent and adapt. To
me, it's a sign that the page is being turned, or it has turned already. So it's very positive.
Doesn't mean it's going to be easy, because change is never easy. Change is never easy because there's a lot of bereavement involved. The letting go of what we know. And that is very scary. But it's very natural and very normal. What makes you a leader then is feeling fear, feeling uncertain, but plowing along anyway.
And what we get out of it, because in the end, people might not notice, but when we develop a certain frame of mind to get out of these situations, And I know that there were people here in the chat as well that mentioned what they did in the past to get out of challenging situations. You build a framework that you then can reuse. So what's good about resourceful people is that they never throw anything away, especially what they learn. And this, in my opinion, is something that helps us. I always like to bring up an example that handles change and resourcefulness, and changing and adapting is at 51% here, which is no joke. More than half of the individuals in this chat room, I mean, went directly to that. Now, what is good about change? And I would like you to think about this a bit. I usually bring up what is the difference between people that are good at handling change and people that are not. And if you notice this, you will notice about yourselves too, because probably if you're in business, you are very well fine-tuned and in tune with change. Now imagine you have this particular individual, okay, or two people. One is adapt to change and the other one is not. Probably the person that's adapt to change, you know, raised, fell, woke up again, got up again, fell, got up, fell, got up, fell, got up. The other person who is, you know, resistant to change or not used to change will probably fall and spend a good amount of time complaining, checking that he's okay, whilst the other person would already be up and running. They would check themselves quickly, you know, make sure that everything is fine and start running again. And by the time the race finishes, probably the person who's adapted to change would have fell a million times. Why? Because you become more in tune with taking risks and challenges and facing change in a particular way. Whilst other people who are maybe a little bit less resourceful and not that in line with change, they don't usually risk that much, or actually, you know, decide to change and try and challenge themselves. You will always find that those people that are most successful are those individuals that adapt to change and actually, you know, ignite the changing process as quickly as possible. So this will help us build a template. And that template we will use in maybe less difficult times. If we manage to get through this, and we manage to get through this in one piece or maybe two, when we will be faced with other challenges in the future, which might not be as close as this, people, you will notice that it's going to feel like a piece of cake. But we need to get through this. And I think that with the results of this poll, we're in the right direction because the attitude is there. And it's a start, very good start in my opinion. I'm not sure, Abigail and Matthew, what you think about this, but.
Yes, because I would also add the 41% who said that they are going to brainstorm ideas of new opportunities. So it's not just 51%, it's even another 44% who are going to think of new ideas. I think it's very positive. I think adapting is what helps us survive. And even when we fail, because we will be struck differently by this scenario, even if we feel that we're failing, it is about failing forward. So what are we learning from our failures? You know, a lot of us are scared of failures, and I think that has to do with ego more than anything else. And because we are taught, even in our schools, that we are judged by our last action. When in real fact, I think we should be promoting a growth mindset, where even if now I feel like I'm failing, I am learning to be a better person, to have a stronger business in the future. And I think that growth mindset changes the perspective of anything in our lives. I can see this as me failing or as me not making the profits I used to make, but I can see this as a lesson, an opportunity for me to grow, for me to sift through my team, which of my team are plowing along with me, and which is this opportunity helping me understand that they don't own the brand, they don't own what we're doing. Their values are not aligned with who we are. So it's good to let them go. It might feel like a big loss now, especially if they've been with us for a long time. But in the future, you'll definitely look back and say, yes, if they were still here, our company wouldn't have evolved in the way that it does. because it's the growth mindset that I want to be a stronger, better person tomorrow than I am today. It's unfortunately failure is what makes us grow stronger. Success makes us arrogant and take things for granted. Eh? Not that I will complain when I am successful, really. Imma failure has a lot of value to it.
Yes.
I think I am always amazed at how things can change, how challenges can be adapted into opportunities. And I don't think it is any kind of innovation that can be done, any kind, even if it's a different way of dealing with your clients, offering different kinds of discounts, make the product look more attractive. Better customer policies, different ways of interacting. Any pinch of ideas that you can do and change at the moment will be something that you are investing in and you will be carrying with you after COVID. At the end of the day, some businesses have a lot of time on their hands. They know their business best, they know their market best, and they should get into thinking and seeing whatever they can do to improve the current situation. We are there for a chat as well. If they want to see whatever is available in terms of schemes, maybe they never had the chance to look into them and sit down and think how they might fit the bill of the target of the scheme and how they can benefit. Now they have time to do this, and new opportunities might come along. So I thank the speakers. Thank you very much for being with us and for sharing. Thank you very much to all of you for staying with us. And I remind you that next week on Monday, we have a webinar regarding work regulations and working conditions, because many of you have asked also questions on what is legal, what is not, and they would like a bit more comfort in knowing how they can move, and they can join us for this Monday session. Thank you very much. Await an email from us following this session with a lot of useful information, and good luck. We are always there if you need any help and assistance. Thank you.
Thanks.